Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a powerful force that's secretly running the show on every team you've ever been a part of. It's called distributed load, and trust me, once you see it, you'll never look at team dynamics the same way again. Okay, let's start with a mystery we've all lived through. You've got a great team, right? Everyone's smart, everyone's capable, things are moving along, and then, boom, out of nowhere, it all just falls apart. It's frustrating, it's confusing. So what is really going on there? Well, our first instinct is to blame the obvious stuff, the usual suspects. We say, oh, it was clashing personalities, or the communication was terrible, or we just throw our hands up and blame a bad culture. But what if those aren't the cause? What if they're just symptoms? The real problem, the hidden culprit, is something much deeper: invisible structural forces. So let's give this hidden force a name. We're talking about distributed load. This is the key that's going to unlock this whole puzzle of why some teams click and others just collapse. Now, here's the crucial thing to get your head around. Distributed load is not just about one person feeling stressed out. It's a pressure that flows through the entire system. It's in the relationships, the roles, the whole group. And it's this invisible current of stress that actually shapes how the team behaves as a single entity. This right here, this quote gets to the absolute heart of it. We have to stop thinking about a team as just, a bunch of individual people who happen to be in the same room. A team is its own living, breathing system. It has its own rules, its own logic that are completely separate from the personalities of the people in it. And that load, that pressure we were talking about, it doesn't just stay in one place. It spreads. Think of it like ripples in a pond. A stressor hits one person, and those ripples travel everywhere, up and down the hierarchy, across different departments, and it even starts to shape the team's very identity. Nobody is isolated from it. Okay, so if this load is always flowing through the group, the big question is, how do teams handle it? To figure that out, we have to stop acting like psychologists looking at personalities and start thinking like architects looking at the actual structure of the team. And that load travels along some pretty clear pathways. First, you've got vertical load. That's pressure moving up and down the official chain of command. Then there's horizontal load, which is the stress that moves between colleagues and across different teams. And then there's the really interesting one, diagonal load. This is the pressure that travels through all those informal, who-you-know networks that never, ever show up on an org chart. When you put all those pathways together, you get what's called the group's network topology. It's basically the team's unique structural blueprint. How connected is everyone? Are there backup pathways for communication? Is the team one big integrated unit, or is it broken up into little silos? The answers to these questions, the very shape of the network, determine everything about how a team will bend or break under pressure. Which, of course, brings us to the dramatic part. What happens when that distributed load just becomes too much? What does it actually look like from a structural view when the whole system fails? Now, this is a really critical idea, and it's kind of counterintuitive. We usually think failure comes from the weakest link, maybe someone on the fringes of the team, but that's not how it works. Teams don't crumble from the outside in. They shatter right at their bottlenecks. So what's a bottleneck? It's any point in the system where all the pressure gets funneled into one tiny spot. Think about a manager who has to approve every little thing, or a single team that's responsible for a critical piece of a project. They have way too much load passing through them. That single point becomes incredibly fragile, and when it breaks, the whole structure is in jeopardy. And this is exactly why a total collapse can feel like it came out of nowhere. These fault lines, these deep structural weaknesses in the team's design, they spread through the network faster than an email or a Slack message ever could. You don't get a memo warning you the team's about to break. You just suddenly feel the ground shake beneath your feet. This whole process unfolds like a string of dominoes in what's called a threshold cascade. It starts small. Just one person or one role hits their breaking point. But that overload sends a shockwave of stress across the entire network. Suddenly, the whole team feels unstable. Then, those bottlenecks we talked about, they burst. The team shatters into disconnected pieces, and you've got total system failure. It's a chain reaction, driven entirely by the structure. So, are we all just doomed to collapse? Well, no, not at all. And this is where leadership comes in, but we have to totally rethink what a leader is. It's not about having a great personality. It's about playing a very specific structural role in this system. Structurally speaking, a leader is basically the central hub for all that distributed load, Think of them as Grand Central Station. All the pressure flows through them. And because of that central position, their own personal stability, or lack thereof, has this huge outsized impact on the stability of the entire team.
And you can really see the two sides of that coin here. A stable or high coherence leader acts like a shock absorber for the whole team. They take in that stress, they handle it, and they redistribute it in a safe way, which stabilizes the entire network. But an unstable, low coherence leader, they do the exact opposite. They act as an amplifier. They take their own stress and just blast it out across the network, triggering all those hidden fault lines and spreading chaos.
So really, it all boils down to this incredibly simple but powerful cycle. First, load spreads. Second, the structure reacts to it. Third, the entire field of relationships shifts. And finally, the system has a choice. It either reorganizes to deal with the new reality, or it collapses. That's the whole game right there. So I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Think about your own team. And don't just think about the people. Look at its architecture. Is your team's structure built to be a shock absorber, to take the hits and distribute the pressures safely? Or is it just a fault line, brittle and fragile, just waiting for the right kind of pressure to crack?